I got bit by a snake at
Alright.
work.
Oh, the hazard.
The
Yeah.
weird part was it was in the office.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that could be a little disconcerting.
Yeah, it was a little strange. It didn't hurt, but it was very strange.
All right, well, welcome, Karen. With your arrival, we've got a quorum to begin our meeting at 5:42 p.m., July 13th, 2023. This is our meeting of the Annapolis Conservancy Board. Everybody should have the agenda. We're going to call the meeting to order. Our first item of business is to approve the Conservancy Board minutes from our May 11th, 2023 meeting. Racine had distributed them.
Yeah, Jack, you can't vote on those because although you have a quorum, Linda was not there, so she cannot vote on those meeting minutes.
Okay.
So just to let you know, sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for that. That's helpful. So we can discuss the minutes and we can just defer because I don't think we're going to have any more members. I think Trudy and both Patrick are not going to be able to make it this evening. So if anybody has any discussion about the meeting minutes, I'll open up the floor. Otherwise, we can move on. And Racine, will we just approve the meeting minutes at the next meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Does anybody want to discuss anything with the minutes? I thought they were very
Honestly,
good.
I haven't had a chance to read them yet. So
Okay. Well, we can always jump back to it. I started doing in the agendas, adding a little like amount of time that I expect to spend on a certain item, because I think that'll help us be a little more expedient and just kind of keep an eye on things as we're going through our meeting. All right, well, we'll move on. We can't vote on that. So we'll go down to our next item. And this is really where I thought we could spend the bulk of our time this evening talking. And I wanted this to be an open discussion with everybody about the duties of the Conservancy Board and, you know, kind of pivoting or changing a little bit of our approach to how we administer the Conservancy Board's actions and trying to assign some action items to different people and just having a healthy discussion. It's not unilateral by any means. So definitely open to everyone's thoughts. But what I did here under item number 3, the duties discussion, is framed out the different duties that are listed on the Conservancy Board's webpage, and then started to populate that with different items for discussion. And I had talked with Linda about this and thought it would be a helpful way to kind of orient ourselves and then start to actually kind of dig into each of these duties and figure out what we can do and who's going to do it and when we're going to get it done. So that was really kind of the big change for this agenda. And I thought that it was helpful, but I'm definitely open to discussing and hearing people's thoughts. Oh, and also we have any minute now, we're going to have a special guest this evening. Eric Lashinsky from the City Planning Department is going to be joining us just to talk, I think, pretty briefly about the 2040 plan and opportunities for the Conservancy Board to contribute there. And then also the Greenway map and any kind of progress with the Greenway work that the city's been doing. But until Eric gets here, I think it would be good for us to just kind of plug away at this item number 3. So, you know, our big duties are solicit the dedication of properties, administer and manage the properties, encourage the preservation of environmentally sensitive land, implement goals for water quality, and develop additional recreational resources of the city. So that's how I framed this out. And then Karen, I really thank you for 1, reading my email because I know it was kind of long, and 2, for responding to it with, I think, really helpful thoughts. And it's not reflected here in the agenda, but I did reorganize it on my end to take some notes. Those other items, I kind of populated them in the various duty categories. So I think we can just run from the top to the bottom. And I think it would be helpful if, you know, I was telling Tom, I don't think we need to assign an individual to each of these duties, but I think if we create an action item that we, you know, of course, should have someone be kind of assigned as lead. And I'm open, open to discussing that as well. I think everybody has different talents and skills and background that they bring to the Conservancy board. And so tapping into those and using those skills to get stuff done, I think is a smart way to proceed. So under the first one was soliciting dedication of properties. I think this is somewhere that Linda and I are pretty interested in. And there's a lot to dig into as far as what does that mean? How do we find, how do we solicit dedication of new properties? How do we find dedication of new properties? How do we, interface with the city and kind of partner with them on this? So I definitely wanted to open up the floor for discussion for strategies to identify new properties. Linda and I had talked briefly about using GIS and using, kind of that geospatial data to maybe identify some properties that might be of interest to the city. And then I don't know if there's other strategies that, anybody has to start identifying properties that we could start to solicit for dedication.
I thought this was the whole point of the Greenway map, because that was one thing that we looked at, was like trying to figure out. But I think our whole goal with the Greenway map was to, kind of set like a concrete plan for the city of like, okay, these are priority areas that should be conserved for the future. So it seems like looking along those greenways that we identified would be like the logical next step of like which properties. Like it seems a little bit to me like like reinventing the wheel to go back to a GIS exercise again, because I feel like that's what we did for putting that map together. But maybe like now, like zeroing in on that map and looking at specific properties, and figuring out ways to get them protected would be, if that makes sense.
That's right, Karen. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, and Karen, thank you. I think that's really helpful and constructive. And forgive me because I don't think that I've ever maybe briefly looked at the Greenway map, but it was before I was part of the Conservancy board, so I wasn't super familiar with the Greenway map and its potential uses for us. But
yeah, because we developed that map by looking at where, I don't know, we looked at a whole bunch of different kinds of GIS layers to try to figure out like, okay, so what's like, where are big undeveloped parcels of land, like how do they connect to other protected, like other easements or protected areas, or where like natural resources that should be protected, and that's what that map is sort of showing as like the result of all of that.
And Karen, is that map published somewhere? I don't know if it's in our Google Drive, and I just Google searched it and nothing came up.
I mean, it was supposed to be attached to the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm not sure where it is exactly.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe Linda knows.
I thought, and if I'm incorrect, I apologize, but I thought you guys were pretty much generating a Greenway map. I think Eric Lashinsky is going to be a great source for what already exists.
Well, we did generate a map, so it's just a matter of where that map ended up.
Yeah.
I did click on a link that Joanna had sent a while back, and it took me to the city's ArcGIS login site. So it must exist on the city's. Oh, hey there, Eric.
Well, I was going to say, if there's one person who can tell us where
Exactly.
we might be able to look for it, we've got them here live and direct. Eric, thank you for taking the time to join us this evening.
Your timing was impeccable.
Yeah, your ears must have been burning because we were just talking about the Greenway map.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't get here a little earlier. That was my plan, but the Greenway map, in the sort of interactive version of it, it's still something that exists. I have to locate it because we haven't really used the interactive version in quite some time since the survey was done probably 2 years ago, 18 months ago, maybe. But we have a printed version that's it's in the comprehensive plan draft in several locations. I think it shows up in 3 or 4 different chapters, the same map, because it's really relevant to multiple chapters. So if it's okay, I mean, I can kind of go into this presentation. We can, my intent was just to kind of give you an overview of the comprehensive plan and want to discuss, ways that the Conservancy Board might be able to help implement some of the recommendations. But I can definitely work to locate the interactive version of that greenways map, because really the next step, we're not, in the comprehensive plan, we're not providing a whole lot of detail on every parcel. It's really just more about the overall idea, and an action step would be to kind of prioritize greenways with, specific greenways within the overall city area and identify them better and think about stewardship. But let me share my screen, and I'm going to give just an overview that's it's actually it's the same as what I presented to the Environmental Commission recently. Not that you all aren't different and specific, but there's a lot of overlapping content, and I'm going to probably go through some of this stuff quicker, and it doesn't need so much discussion. But so we did release a draft of our comprehensive plan finally on June 15th at the Planning Commission, and we're in a 90-day comment period for this draft comprehensive plan. I'm going to talk a little about how to access it. Let's see here. Advance the slides. All right. So just a few frequently asked questions. 90-day comment. So how long is the draft document open for review? 90 days. It'll actually end. So it's the second meeting of the Planning Commission in September. I have to double check the date, but it's somewhere in mid-September. And then the idea would be that it gets handed off to the City Council at that point. But will there be more chances to learn? So we're doing a whole bunch of events around this draft plan. We had 2 in-person events this week. One at Pitt Moyer that was on Tuesday, and last night we were at the Hillsmere Library. Next week we have an in-person meeting at the Mount Olive Community Life Center in Parole, and at the West Street Library on Tuesday. Mount Olive's on Monday, West Street's Tuesday. Both are at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And
Eric, sorry, just real quick. I don't know if
Yeah.
you're trying to share a calendar or something, but I think you're just sharing this screen with us up on it if you were trying to share something else.
oh, geez. I wonder why. Oh, let me try. Hold on a second. I think I hit the wrong screen to share. I'm glad you
Perfect. There you go.
I think you're muted.
Eric, you're muted.
Okay. Thank you. Can you hear me now? Okay. All right, we're getting there. Can you see the screen, the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Great.
Hi, everybody. Sorry to be late, but is our goal here to this kind of stuff, with all due respect, Eric, I think most of us probably know who follow it all. Are we moving to Greenway planning and what's in the plan? Is that, I'm just trying to figure out, what are we doing tonight, Jack?
So Trudy, we've got our special guest, Eric Lashinsky
Yep,
here,
yep.
who's going to be talking about I think the first thing we talked about a little bit was the Greenway map, which it sounds like I'll follow up with Eric after the meeting and try to get the interactive version, or just even a map for us to use to discuss. And then we're also talking about the 2040 comprehensive plan, which was an
So
agenda.
you already did the Greenway plan. So we got that done, huh? Is that right? Now we're moving on to the comp plan. Excuse me, I'm just trying to get oriented here quickly for a second. Okay.
Yes. Well, you can
All right.
expect more discussion on the Greenway plan probably at the next meeting and maybe between now and the next meeting.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to touch on as part of this, and I'm not going to dwell too much on this. I just want you all to be aware of kind of how this comprehensive plan process is working. We're basically in a very robust engagement process right now during this 90-day comment period. So we're trying to reach out to every board and commission and civic association that has an interest in this. And ultimately, we're handing off the draft plan to the city council after the 90-day period, and they'll have their own adoption process. We're gathering all the comments into a comment log. We're going to respond to them, and that will be delivered to the city council with a planning commission recommendation. And I'm not going to, that's the schedule. So I won't focus on this timeline. This is essentially trying to visualize what I just explained. The Maryland State Code guides our comprehensive plan. It basically gives the planning commission the authority to shepherd the plan forward. And that's why it starts at the planning commission, not at the city council. And then ultimately the city council has to adopt it. But there's a number of ways to comment between now and then. And even during the adoption process, the city council will
And I didn't follow what you said. Once you collect all these comments from all these meetings, you bundle them together and you send it off to the city council. You don't expect to make another round of changes after the citizen comments?
We're not going to issue another plan draft at that. What we're going to do is gather all the comments into a comment log, respond to them. This is a great comment. This is how we'll fix, the comp plan to address this, et cetera, and pass that on to the city council. And then they're going to have other comments. And so the whole thing will probably get some significant changes by the end. But yeah, that's the process.
Do you know what committee or how the city council deals with what's going to be a huge task if it's a whole log of comments and a plan? Do you know how they plan to do that?
No, it's really up to them. I think every time we do one of these comprehensive plans, every 10 years, there's a different city council, and they have to determine how they would like to conduct that and how they want to receive the comments. And so I don't, unfortunately.
Yeah, that seems, given how long they can ponder a small thing, this seems like a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would agree. I've been trying to manage expectations. I think in the best possible situation, we might have an adopted plan by the end of the year, but it could be well into the next year before we have an adopted plan. I just don't have any sense of how long that's going to take. So
okay. Thank you. I'll quiet down and let you go ahead. Sorry.
No, feel free to ask questions along the way. So when you go to AnnapolisHead2040.com, it'll take you to the city's website where we've been doing our comprehensive plan documentation for the last few years. You can click on review the draft plan. It takes you to a new website where you can download the full plan. And if you scroll down, you'll see chapters of the plan broken out. There's a survey associated with each plan, with each chapter. That's one way to submit comments. You can also just send them directly to me. But kind of just want to get into the plan itself. The structure hasn't really changed for the last few years that we've been working on developing the plan. still is broken into these three sections: the thriving city, the functional city, the adaptive city. The chapters within those are really the core contents of the plan, from municipal growth to water resources. Most of them are required by the state through that land use code, and they provide guidance on what should be in those chapters. But obviously we put our own spin, and it has to be specific to Annapolis, and it's very specific. I mean, this is a big document. I apologize to those who were expecting an executive summary or something, but it's basically everything you ever wanted to know about Annapolis, but we're afraid to ask. And I think I would say it's probably because there should be something for everybody in this plan. And we've just heard from a lot of people along the way. But I'm not going to dwell too much on the introduction chapter, the demographic trends, except to say that from the very first page here, we emphasize these themes of equity, health, and resilience as these underlying themes that really should guide every goal and action in this plan. And I'd say environmental concerns cut across all of these, obviously, and you'll find evidence of that in every chapter. Again, the structure, the principles. I'm just gonna go through this stuff. We basically just try to share. These are all excerpts from the plan itself. We try to document kind of how we got to this final plan, and explaining the process, demographic trends. So social vulnerability is really a key signature aspect of this plan. We're trying to understand where are communities that are less able to adapt to changing environmental conditions or economic conditions. And to do that, we use the CDC's social vulnerability matrix. It's a basic 15 socioeconomic factors that have been used to map communities all over the country. And when applied to Annapolis, you can see the darker areas are the ones that are more socially vulnerable. So Clay Street community, Allen College Creek here, Forest Drive communities, Parole. And we use this data as a base layer in a lot of our other maps throughout the comp plan. You'll see it for park access, transit, water access, number of other maps in this plan. So this is a pretty important aspect of the demographic analysis. Thriving city. The main thing I want to highlight here is in land use, where we see the future land use map here. This is really, I think, where you kind of start to get into the stuff that's really relevant to the Conservancy board. The future land use map is probably the most important map in this whole plan, and probably in most comprehensive plans. It sets the vision for how we should use our land in this city. What is the best use of our land? We obviously, it's a premium here in Annapolis. We don't have a lot of it, 8 square miles. We're mostly built out. The future of Annapolis growth is really in using our land more efficiently and improving the performance of the land we have, environmentally, economically, for the most part. And really big change with this future land use map versus the one you would have seen in the last comprehensive plan in 2009 is that we pulled out all of the environmental assets that were embedded in other land use categories in the past. So all of this bright green is a new land use designation called environmental enhancement areas. And those were created primarily from that greenways map. We took existing conservation easements, potential conservation easements from the greenways survey, and we looked at other areas that weren't maybe included that were in our resource conservation area within the critical areas boundary. Basically, places that were either likely not developable or shouldn't be developed. In some cases, there's parking lots next to creeks that in the future, if they remain parking, they should be heavily retrofitted for stormwater management or either not be used as parking. We did some scrutiny of those types of locations around the city, and there's probably a few that we missed. In fact, at our event at Pitt Moyer on Tuesday night, I spoke with a couple people who live in the Saltaire community along Hilltop Lane, and they shared that we missed. It's hard to see on here, but this red area along Hilltop Lane is like the Admiral Farragut Apartments, and on both and. There is obviously, there's a stream corridor through there that feeds Spa Creek. And so we've already been working to correct that. So that will now show a riparian, sort of a bright green riparian area right here. So there are things that we may have missed. And so I would encourage you all to scrutinize this future land use map from the perspective of the greenways and conservation areas, and just let us know if you catch anything that seems off. But the red areas, so actually let me say that the dark green areas are what we call recreation enhancement areas. And past, those may have just been called parks and open space. The distinction here is these are not only city parks, but also we carved out the open space areas at the schools, the public schools, where we want to preserve recreational assets and potentially invest in those as community assets. So that they were all, like, for example, here's Tyler Heights Elementary. That would have been all blue for institutional in the past, but we carved out this large area, which is currently green space at the school. So that's just one example.
So do you consider this map just mapping what we have or what we ought to have as our ultimate goal for the use of the land? I can't read enough the words on this.
Yeah, it's a little of both. I mean, I think we tried to be, it's more of what we should have. I'd say like the bright green, the dark green, those are more of what we want to preserve and create, like this green area here at the end of Edgewood, Bemby Beach Road. It's currently a large green field, grassy field. I mean, sure, maybe there's some development plan for that, but that's another asset, that could be preserved. It's close to the waterways, and so I would say this is more aspirational. Some of these, there might be a bit development interest in some of these sites, but we would want to be thinking about the implication of that. And this plan suggests that what's green has value to stay green.
Eric, hi, sorry, this is Tom Lippert, and you may be getting near this as we go further. We've kicked this thing around for a number of years with varying players, but the council is going to make the final decision, which is fine. Whoever decides what they want to do. I'm hearing what you're saying, and I think it's a great idea. But I'm taking a broad look at Annapolis as we have it. We've got pockets of different people around. You've got those. I guess the overall is: do we want to go the route of having those independent pockets be kind of like small micro portions of the city, or are we looking at the city as a whole? I'm getting back, I think Karen may have heard this discussion before. I originally came from the Midwest, from Cleveland, and they have their park system. What they did was build what they called an emerald necklace. It was a series of parks that circled the vast majority of the city and built the connectors to get from one part to another where they didn't exist. But that also then put it back to planning and zoning equivalent, to where they said, okay, fine, any building has to, this is the part that is going to stay sacrosanct, or you have to account for the changes, or you have to build a connector. And so that was already locked in the plans for anything future that the city would decide. But they also then created this thing. Now, again, long view, because it's taken them about 50 years in order to finally put it together. And we all know, as Trudy mentioned, Annapolis kind of moves just a little slower than that. But, if I think it would help us on the board if we, if the end result was, okay, city council says, yes, we want to do individual, units and then build out from that, or we want to have, a continuity of a park system around it and then build tendrils that come in from that. Again, however that leadership would be, would make our life that much easier. Then we can decide whether or not, or how to pinpoint people if there is land that would be an ideal connector, how to identify it, whether the city would pour it in, or how.
Yeah.
It's,
go ahead, I'm
it's
sorry.
not-
I
it's
think that's a
more
great point.
about minuscule steps from where we are than anything big or inspirational about how do we take where we are and create and tie it together. And you look at these things and you don't see what's the big picture we would hope we can do for Annapolis. To me, it's like, okay, that's where we have spots of open space and we'd like to keep them, but we don't rock many boats and say, here's where we'd like to see a different use from what we have now,
This is the first place in the comp plan where the Greenway map shows up. It's in the land use chapter, page 102. It's identified as an implementation tool for the land use vision. It's basically showing the connections when you link together existing conservation easements, potential conservation easements, our trail network, both existing and recommended. You start to see these networks. I think a next step, coming out of, if we can get to an adopted comprehensive plan, is to zero in on places where we have the potential to create maybe a neighborhood scale greenway. For example, along Forest Drive, the meeting last night at the Hillsmere Library, I was talking to Earl Bradley from the Sierra Club, and he spent like 2 hours just looking at this. And it's like, he's really focused on completing the forest. He really wants to see the Forest Drive Greenway become a reality. And that's a formidable task to kind of think about how all of these existing pieces can kind of connect to each other, potentially be a trail in the future. They're all very different parcels. There's something, potentially on Weems Creek here. If you go from West Street, you can get all the way to Jennifer Road potentially, and from there could be a trailhead along Weems Creek. This is a large conservation area outside of the city, just north of Weems Creek. And so, I think that you'll see if you go into the goals and actions in this comprehensive plan, and I could follow up with you with a kind of like a list of the where to look, but like the last goal in our land use chapter, for example, is to link the city together with the remaining natural areas and create a true greenway system. And we provide a whole bunch of recommended actions for how to do that. In our community facilities chapter, which is a lot about the parks of the city, we have a goal that says merge our existing park system with our conservation network so that they're not two different networks. And that's really the issue today. Now, clearly our Parks Department I wouldn't say is really equipped to manage all of that land. And so, we have a recommendation that says we need to provide the training to our parks maintenance staff so they understand how to be conservation stewards. They understand how to manage green infrastructure. probably needs more staff, but there's a lot of recommendations in this plan that are focused on how to advance the conservation network. And I have to leave this meeting at 6:30, so I'm trying to just provide, in some sense, some clues to how to kind of start accessing the document, and perhaps at your next meeting, I could return, or you could just kind of open the document and start talking about some of these sections. But I'm going to kind of, the functional city, transportation, I mean, this is where the Greenway map, I believe, shows up again. Let me get through some of this. This is not so relevant. Bike network. I want to, so here we are, community facilities. I mentioned parks are a big part of this chapter. The Cars Beach, Elktonia conservation project was a pretty big success in the last year. But access, and so this map actually doesn't even include that yet. This is our parks network with this kind of access analysis. It shows, it's a little confusing. You kind of have to read the text to understand how it works, but we're basically saying that all of our parks are different size, different program. You shouldn't necessarily be a short walk from the largest park in the city. That should maybe be a larger walk radius, and the smallest street end parks, maybe everybody is a quarter mile from a small park. But we do quite a bit of equity analysis here. Our water access kind of does the same, uses that social vulnerability mapping. And there's about 6 pages just on public water access in this plan, in this chapter. This is important spread to talk about because page 210 and 211, this is a focus on College Creek. This is really, I would say, one of the most important greenway opportunities, if not the most important greenway opportunity in the city. It is heavily public land already. City actually owns very little land along the creek, but there's a large Anne Arundel County parcel right here. There are some housing authority parcels. There's one here and here. St. John's College, of course. And then this peninsula is state of Maryland and the Navy. And the city is actually working on a plan for this peninsula called Gateway Park. And we have the support of both the state and the Navy. And that's going to be very passive, very minimal disturbance to the existing forested area there. But we don't really have a plan, I would say, for this. This is really like just a sketch of what is maybe possible here in terms of connections. And the city is putting a lot of money right now and energy into this Robert Eads Park, which was named after a neighborhood activist and community advocate. But this is an area where there's not a lot in conservation easement, and not a lot of water access. But we're going to be doing a citywide parks and recreation master plan in the coming year that'll be led by our Recreation and Parks Department. And I think that's an opportunity to do kind of a focused study of this, and truly understand what the conservation potential is here. And maybe the Conservation Board could sort of get a head start on that. But it's never going to be Spot Creek or Back Creek. It's always going to be, I think College Creek will be a natural part of the city, which is really, I think, encouraging. I just don't, it has environmental issues in terms of sedimentation, but it has a lot of potential as an environmental asset. So the last 2 chapters are in this section called Adaptive City, and we have environmental sustainability and water resources, and that Greenway map shows up here as well. But this is where we kind of frame the the environmental issues, I would say, primarily climate change and vulnerability, and the Greenway map has a role to play in that, of course. Trying to find some. So, we use some analysis from other plans. These are from the city's flood mitigation plan that the Office of Emergency Management created. And, it'd be interesting to think about like which of our conservation sites align with these highly vulnerable areas that it's hard to see, I know, but the colored areas are really this gradient of risk from sea level rise and storm surge over the next 50 to 100 years. And, I think that as we evolve the Greenway map, understanding which sites are kind of priorities for climate resilience would be important. I think I should probably stop at this point and just see if there are questions that I can address before I have to jump off.
Eric, thank you so much.
Q&A.
That was, I think for all of us, that was incredibly valuable. I know that, the draft plan came out in June, and I don't know if everyone's had a chance to look at it. I certainly have not done a deep dive, but I already feel much better equipped to now jump in and kind of orient myself. So that was really helpful. And having the Greenway map in there and all this other mapping, I think is going to really serve as a good foundation for us to start building off of. And as far as us supporting, the Conservancy Board being able to support what you and the planning department and the city at large are doing, I don't know if we have an answer to that question right here, right now, but I think that's something that we're interested in. I'm, personally interested in how we can support what the city's doing with this group here. So I don't know if there's anything that you can say about that, or if that's kind of something that'll develop over time.
Well, I had a thought. Let me share my screen one more time. Actually, I want to show an image from the plan that I just found.
Eric, you're muted again, by the way.
Oh, it's our cute little signs.
Yeah. A little worse for wear, but there it is.
Hey, it's still there.
You're still muted, Eric.
Yeah, something happens whenever I share my screen a certain way. It seems like it
mutes you.
mutes me automatically. Let me try this one more time.
You're muted again, but maybe you can unmute. I don't know. It's page 283. I've got the plan open on my screen here, 283.
I'm gonna try this one more time, and I'm gonna do this. Okay, hold on. This hopefully will work. Okay, you still hear me?
Yeah. Oh, you're good now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
Yeah. So yeah, your great signs. I mean, I actually took this photo. I found this in the easement that's upstream of Hawkins Cove. In that I think it's called the Vitar easement.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And I don't know how many of these are out there, but I thought it was really interesting, to find it. It seemed, when I see signs like that, I always imagine they're really old. But maybe this one isn't that old. I think thinking about how to inform people of the conservation that has happened is, I think, really important. I mean, we're dealing with the same issue with water access. And a lot of our street end parks don't really have adequate signage, and nobody knows that they're public and what you're allowed to do there. And we have some stormwater easements in some locations that are also supposed to be public places and they're not well marked. So this might be a good discussion for the board, is to, like, I don't know what kind of documentation we have as to where these signs are, or where they should be, but I think that's an important part of the conservation efforts, is letting people know where they are, especially along trail, obviously where people are going to see them, where we have trail access. So that's just one thought I had, for
Yeah, and I think,
just don't
I
know
don't know
last
if we want
time.
to formalize this comment, but I have brought up before our signage, and if we need more signs, I don't really like that it's nailed to a tree. We put them on like a T-post or something, and maybe even I just took an action. I just wrote down a little note that could probably enhance that sign a little bit, make it a little more, put like the city logo or something on it. And but
Yeah, I
think
think
that's a great comment.
yeah, I think those signs were originally produced during Ellen Moyer's time as mayor. So
Yeah,
I'm sure the information is way outdated. Like, I don't know if the phone number is still valid or anything.
But it gets the point across right now, at least, I think, Eric, like you were saying. Plus, it gives the people that what's going down there. If the sign has been poked and prodded and everything else, you've got people going through at least. So somebody has seen them and they've served a purpose. But, there's definitely, options. I mean, this is obviously Jack's show in this case, but, we're just tickled to death to be able to put like a switchboard operator wherever we can help plug two sides in that are picking up and wanting to go and get some stuff done, to be facilitators instead of trying to drive the train. And a lot of times, they're looking for, who do we go to? Who do we, have this? So if we've got a constant group where we're getting, Jack and the team here is getting specific guidance on that, we'll just, we represent the city, and as we all. So whatever we can do in order to help facilitate that, that'd be terrific.
Eric,
I
know
have
you
to
gotta
jump off, unfortunately, but
Eric, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. And, maybe we can have you back again, or we can kind of communicate with you, throughout the 90-day comment period, and find some other ways that we can be supportive to planning and to the city and for the.
Feel free to bounce any questions off me, even while you may not be meeting in August, but just any questions that come up as you look at the plan, and any thoughts you have about what might be helpful for the board to do to assist the city, that would be fine. I'd be happy to try to answer those. So
great. Really appreciate your time, Eric. And we'll look forward to this conversation evolving.
Okay. All right. Take care.
See you later.
Sir.
We saw the Greenway map.
Jack, can I make two motions related to that, to what we just heard?
Karen, the floor is yours.
I move that the board review the parts of the comprehensive plan that Eric just mentioned to us and come up with comments that we would like to submit. I would suggest that we try to, I guess we have to look at the deadline, but if we all came with our comments and discussed them at the next board meeting, I think that might be in time to submit them. But otherwise, we could try to do it via email in advance.
It might be like almost the last day, but I think you're right.
Oh,
because I think it came out about a month ago, and it lasts for 90 days. So we're 30 days in now, and it would be 60 days when we meet again. That would be about 90 days. But regardless, do we want to try to submit comments before? Yeah, obviously during the comment period.
You can have offline discussions on the Google Drive if you want to try to do something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, like
I think we
maybe
can sidebar on it as far as when we submit, Karen. But I think your motion, could you restate the motion?
I move that the board review the parts of the comprehensive plan that Eric just pointed out to us and come up with a list of comments that we would like our board to submit by the end of the 90-day period.
I'll second that.
I'd just like comment that I think we ought to hone your comments to the issues that relate to the work of this committee, because the plan, there's going to be big housing debates and there, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think any of us are up for that. I mean, I already going to be in that debate because of my other organizations, but I don't think you're saying take on the whole thing.
No, Trudy, what Karen was saying is to focus on the sections that Eric had pointed out, and I'll take on the action. I'll send out an email to everyone identifying which sections we should be reviewing and providing comments on. That way we're not getting distracted with things that are not related to our duties.
Well, we've had a number of conversations along the way, and what he did to me so far, I will make a to me so far, our comprehensive plan for the city of Annapolis is inventorying what exists, and that's valuable, and every plan has that as part A. I am interested to read the plan and I'm going to go to the library presentation. Is it a plan for a vision bigger than what exists? It looks to me like all this time has been to kind of document what exists. Well, that's valuable, but what do you say about that? When somebody shows you a map of where the splotches of green are, well, okay, I mean, it's when you get into a vision and something bigger. I don't know. I don't know what you say about a plan that's an inventory of existing things.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I would counter that the Greenway map shows a lot of land that says potential conservation easement,
Okay.
meaning that there's nothing there, and the city's identified it, or the Conservancy board in partnership with the city has identified it as somewhere that we could put a conservation easement that
Okay.
doesn't.
Well,
currently
I'm
exist.
sorry, I missed that piece, and I need to pay more attention. But I thought what we saw tonight was kind of, here's what exists. I have lots more to pay attention to. But
Yeah, it's page 102 of the comprehensive plan. It shows areas for potential easements, which that to me is where we,
that's
probably
good.
our best
Okay.
energy is spent evaluating this Greenway map and evaluating those areas. So I think Karen's motion is still on the floor. If
Yes,
there's any
that's
more
right.
discussion, now's the time.
Did we get a second? I'm sorry. You want a second?
I seconded.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Karen.
And then
Okay.
a couple other things I was going to say about that. I don't know, I was going to say it as a motion, but maybe it doesn't really need to be a motion, but just to set aside a time at some point to discuss what he was talking about with the signs. And then he also mentioned about that the Department of Parks and Rec is going to be doing a park plan in the future. So at some point I think we should maybe reach out to that department to see if they might be willing to tell us more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've got an opportunity with the new director, who I have not had the chance to meet yet. Potentially once that plan is off the ground, or even maybe sooner than that, we could invite someone from Rec and Parks to, talk a little bit about the goals of that plan and how we can fit into those goals. Because Eric did mention conservation potential as part of that.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not sure if it's really required at the city level, but I think all the county plans for the state requirements, you have a conservation component as part of your parks plan. So we could wait.
I'm curious how much overlap there is between this 2040 comprehensive plan and what Rec and Parks might do. Maybe theirs is more granular. But I'm sure obviously it's going to be, it has a different focus. It's more just on the park resources, but no, I think that's a great point, Karen. And yeah, I took a note of that as well, because it sounds like Eric was saying that might happen next year. But the citywide Parks and Rec master plan
I can just hardly imagine a process in the city of Annapolis where they get a big binder of all the public comments and the city council is somehow going to work through that and come, it's just, blows my mind.
We'll see. I can imagine there will be some healthy discussion once it gets to that point.
Oh, yes, I think there'll be plenty of discussion. It's decisions and action I was wondering about, but
Yeah.
anyway, we'll see. We'll see.
So I think though the way that we can really help, I think Karen summarized it well with her motion, is we review what the city's put forth in this draft comprehensive plan. We provide comments back to the planning commission, planning department, and then we take this greenway map and use it to discuss amongst ourselves as the Conservancy board these areas identified for potential new easements and the value of those, and start to figure out how we would transition those into easement areas.
Totally
if we
agree.
want to
I
proceed
just
that way.
also look forward to seeing, are there any policies that talk about a more aggressive city of implementing when development occurs? What easement areas we get and we get to see? I mean, this mystery of we get some and not others. I mean, we'll see if that's in the plan, I mean, yeah, our number one goal is to find sites. Well, we can't find sites if the city doesn't help us because they're the controlling entity of what they require of developments in a development process. So I'm just interested to see what kind of policies are in there that help do that.
Yeah, I understand. I think that's a good point to make to try to keep everybody on the same page. I think that looking at this greenway map, though, a lot of these areas identified for potential new easements are riparian, what I would consider almost like undevelopable land. So that to me is kind of an opportunity. If the land can't be used to develop some other resource, then why not conserve it and protect it and evaluate it if it could be improved.
And
Not to get too off topic, but just to keep in mind that if it's undevelopable, it might not be worth spending easement money on because
Right.
it's already semi-protected.
That's
Yeah.
that's a fair point, but I don't know if that negates the environmental values that could be conserved. And like I'm just looking at this map, there's just like stream corridors and area like little tidal areas, the head of tide. But yeah, that's another good point, Karen. Yeah, like we talked about with Truxton Park and Ellen Moyer, they don't have conservation easements on them, but they don't need them technically, right?
Well, I mean, I think those could be developed potentially. I was thinking more things like 100-year floodplain areas or I don't know if there were wetland areas, maybe. It depends on what kind of natural resources are on there, I guess. But I just know that the state, when they do their greenway planning and mapping, that they tend to consider certain types of area, like especially like floodplain areas, as undevelopable, and so they consider that some not the same as being already protected, but like kind of a next tier or something.
Right. There's not development pressure, so
yeah,
it's not a high priority for conservation.
Right.
That makes sense.
Well, the other thing that goes back, and it's only be a 15-second summary, but we still have a lot of land that falls into that category, though, that remains under ownership of either people or homeowners associations, and there's no incentive for them to turn it over to anybody else unless the city decides they want to create an incentive of some sort in order to have them do that. So I mean, it's a multi-headed beast out there.
That's a good point too, Tom.
Look at all the development that's gone on. It's certainly in the time I've been on the commission, and how much ever came to us as preserved land and open space? Where did that all go?
Well, that's where planning and zoning tree, I think, really needs to get on board, and the fact of, okay, fine, here's the leadership, here's what we've got, here's what we all have to preserve. Everybody agree? North, south, head nod and saying, great, then this has to be part of your plan. Mr. and Ms. Contractor.
I agree, but that's up to me. That's an intermediate step. A top step is a comprehensive plan that says we're going to do everything we can to use our redevelopment process to create open space land that fits a master
Yeah,
plan.
yeah.
And that's what I'll be looking for in the plan, because that's always what's frustrated me is, we get some stuff and we get, but it's been a long time since we've gotten much new.
Yeah.
Where did that all go?
Yep.
Anyway, that's all future discussions, Jack, but I just, we've been at this a long time in this context and in general working with the city. And I don't think they've ever really helped us very much expand our properties or knit them together in, a sensible long-range planning way. And this is their plan. Let's see what they did,
Yeah, hopefully the comp plan can be, written such that can be a guiding document instead of just one to put on the shelf.
Just as a quick background, I administered the nation's comprehensive planning programs for years, and I'm very cynical, as you can see. As a planner, I got cynical because plans don't really plan, they inventory and if place and so that's all. That's my historic cynicism a little bit about comprehensive plannings, is they don't really say really forcefully, what they want to get to and how they plan to get to it. They just tell you where there's parcels of land that fit this and that. But anyway, I have to read it first. I shouldn't be so cynical, should I, Jack?
I think that also this kind of ties back to that long email that I sent where talking about kind of restructuring a little bit of how we do our business. And, if we feel like we're not getting some support that would be helpful to us, I think that we need to discuss it as a group and then maybe, discuss with our city liaison and say, hey, can we, talk to this person in the city, or can we set up a meeting and maybe try to get some, motion, get some momentum going. So I think that we have a good opportunity here with Karen's motion to review and provide comments and discuss as a group. And then I think we also have good momentum and a good kind of path forward as far as framing out what we're trying to accomplish. I really think that with Karen's motion, that's the bulk of what I was hoping to accomplish tonight. I think having Eric was really helpful. He helped to orient us. Now we've got some homework. We've got a homework assignment to do for all of us to review these sections and provide some comments. And I'm happy to discuss, between now and our next meeting, everybody's thoughts. And we won't be able to make any motions. We won't have a formal meeting between now and then, but that is what I'm most excited about between now and the end of this comment period.
Good, me too.
And so I'm just looking, so I think that was really helpful. I'm really grateful that Eric was able to stop in, and because the plan is 400 something pages long. And when I started looking at it, I had briefly looked at it, but I was like, wow, I really don't have time for 400 pages. So I kind of didn't look deep at it. So now we've got some guidance. So that was really helpful. I'm just looking down at the agenda to see if there's any other items that are important for us to discuss. We've got our strategies to identify new properties. We
I
kind of talked
have
about.
a suggestion, Jack. I
Yes.
apologize for interrupting.
Please go ahead.
Of course, Linda was not there last meeting, so she can't vote, but you have a quorum. You might want to go over the minutes from last meeting really quickly and
Oh, we've got
vote on
Trudy now.
those.
Yes. Thank you, Racine, for the reminder, because now we have a quorum to vote on our meeting minutes. All right, so back to item number 2 under our agenda, the approval of the Conservancy Board's meeting minutes from our May 11th, 2023 meeting. I will open the floor to discussion, and then I will move to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Not hearing any discussion, so I move to approve our May 11th, 2023 minutes.
Second.
Tom has seconded. All in favor of approving the May Conservancy Board minutes?
Aye.
Hi.
And
Good.
Linda's gonna abstain.
I feel like I've made such a valuable contribution to this meeting. I've allowed you to approve the minutes.
Trudy, you always do. Don't discount yourself.
Couldn't live without that. I gotta get those minutes done. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that's some business we actually had to do. So
Thanks, Racine.
yeah, so now I'm just gonna run down quickly. I don't think we need to spend, I think we accomplished what I was hoping to this evening, and I don't want to spin our wheels. I think that we have that's a good assignment from Eric and from Karen's motion. But just looking down at the agenda that I had sent out, which kind of outlines all of our different duties and some items under there. Under administer and manage said properties, I'm going to Truxton Park on Saturday morning with Save Our Trees to remove some English ivy with them and a group of other volunteers, and would encourage anybody who's interested to participate to come on out. And if you remember from our last meeting, I was trying to work with Save Our Trees and the Conservancy Board to figure out if there are easements where we really have issues with English ivy or other invasives, and try to get some help from Save Our Trees to come in and remove. And I think, Racine, you've talked with Terry from Save Our Trees a little bit as well. And I know that we were trying to all get together and talk about how we can work together to.
Yeah, Terry sent out an invite for next week. I don't know if you were included. I am working with her on trying to get some grant funds for the Save Our Trees organization. And we're trying to reach out to sort of underrepresented areas and, areas of, socioeconomic need. But maybe I can mention to her next week. I think, let me check real quick, of when that meeting invite was for.
I had it as well, Racine. So I think I'm planning on being there as well.
Okay, so we can touch base next week with Terry McKenna and sort of take it from there.
Great. Thank you. So that's invasive removal, which I think is something important. If we have identified other areas where there's a lot of invasives, I think that's something good to keep in mind, because they will just keep creeping in on conservation areas if they're not managed. Unfortunately, Patrick's not able to make it this evening to discuss. He did a lot of that heavy lifting on looking at deeds, plats, documents that are missing, mapping that's not updated or doesn't seem to be correct. So hopefully next meeting with Patrick present, we'll be able to pick that up. Under encourage preservation of sensitive land, I think we've covered that very well under the discussion with Eric, and that's kind of captured in Karen's motion. Further implementing goals for improving water quality. This one I'm a little less clear on how the Conservancy Board is equipped or oriented to implement those goals. I'm not even actually clear on what goals for improving water quality are exactly, but
Because
I
our
have some thoughts
historian
about
Karen
that.
understand how it even got in there. I don't even recognize it as something I ever thought of. We talked about as our.
yeah, it's listed as one
It
of our
is in the
duties.
code. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it came out of, because the first two, my understanding is the first two boards that were created, city advisory boards, was the Maritime Advisory Board and the Annapolis Conservancy Board, and they were closely aligned for a long time. Like for a while, the chair of the Conservancy Board was also a member of the Maritime Advisory Board. And so I think it was kind of related to that. But that aside, my thoughts about how we could implement this, and I'm willing to be, I see that you had on the agenda that you're looking for a lead, and I'm willing to be the board lead for that if you want. If nobody else is interested, but we do have some spots where we have recommended, like, for example, we have an easement at the head of College Creek in the Homewood neighborhood that we have recommended in the past for a stream restoration project, because it's like the first place that that College Creek comes out of a pipe, stormwater pipe. So it's like an excellent opportunity to try to treat the stormwater and to improve water quality. So I think opportunities like that. There's also, I was thinking when Eric was giving his presentation, there's also an area closer to the tidewater of College Creek where there's a daylighting opportunity, because the stream goes back into piping next to the senior apartments. and then comes back out of the pipe again at the tidal water. So there's an opportunity there for daylighting. So I think maybe like kind of identifying these sorts of opportunities amongst existing easements or potential new easements where things could be done to help improve overall water quality goals that the city has separately might be where we could fit in to that.
Thank you, Karen. No, that's really well put. And I think the one you're talking about at headwater of College Creek is that pipe. We visited that, I think, with Linda and Patrick and Joanna, like a couple, when we did our first little easement monitoring walk. It's that massive outfall. That one, yeah. And then,
And
so
we
okay,
think
so
there's
that makes a lot
no
of sense.
part of the, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Well, there's no part, I mean, to me, that sounds like a classic thing that a city government would have a department that manages and worries about it. And we really don't. I mean, an advisory board with, the city amazes me sometimes. I mean, I don't know.
The Department of Public Works, the stormwater manager is Betsy McCune, and she does work on restoration projects. And part of working on some of these projects is sort of looking for some funding, some grant funding to help pay for the expense of the restoration projects. So there is someone in city government that is sort of responsible for this thing. But my suggestion is maybe you might want to, reach out to Betsy and maybe ask her a question or two and see how she might be able to work with the ACB.
Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah, I mean, I see our role more as like advocacy, or like, it's squeaky wheel.
Yeah,
like
a list of
but
things.
similar to like, that spot on College Creek. I think it was it's not the Brewer Street easement, but it's near there. But like when the city was putting together their watershed action plan, we pushed to have that included, and it ended up as a target restoration site for them. But it hasn't really moved forward since then, I'm sure, because of like the funding issues like Racine said. But that's like the kind of thing that we could like try to make sure it's in the comprehensive plan, or like just keeping an eye out to like make sure these things keep moving forward and don't fall between the cracks.
Yeah, put that way, I totally, as an advocate and a force for telling the city that, these are things that we need to move on. I like that idea. The idea that we're gonna really make them move if the city doesn't move them is. I felt kind of cynical and grumpy tonight, don't I?
Karen, I think you make a really good point that, we're not implementing water quality goals. We're supporting the city and advising them on what would make sense to do using our expertise and
Okay.
yeah, I agree. I think we're helping to orient the city. The city has, like Racine stated, the city has a stormwater program. They've got staff, that are assigned to stormwater management. And I guess I see our role as helping the city to identify areas that they could focus on. And I don't know if we could help with, locating grants that are available, or, I think that will shake out, as time goes on. But Karen, do we need to make a motion to assign you as the board lead, or can we is that just
I don't think so. I think that we've done subcommittees without it being a motion, I think, haven't we?
Yeah, we don't. I don't think we need to make a motion to form committees under the board.
Thank you, Karen.
You're
All
welcome.
right, I think that's great. Thanks, Karen, and I'm happy to talk with you as well. I mean, I think I have expertise in the water quality improvement sphere, so great. And I think we can use that Greenway map to identify some of those areas, some of those potential areas for water quality improvement. Okay. After that, provide development of additional recreational resources of the city. I think this harkens back to the discussion with Eric again, public water access, opportunities in the 2040 plan, and Hawkins Cove. Racine, while we've got you here, while we're all here together, I did want to ask if you had anything to update on Hawkins Cove for the Conservancy Board. I know last time you had said that the city had.
Yeah, I reached
contact.
out to the Department of Public Works project manager for Hawkins Cove. I just want to let you know that the company that the city landed with is Balin Consultants, and they were hired as design engineers for what they're calling phase 1 of the Hawkins Cove Living Shoreline Project. They're going to develop a 30% design for the living shoreline that's going to go in there, and then phase 2 is going to come up next. That's all that I have.
Okay. Yeah, I guess at some point there'll be a public comment or public discussion period about their design, and so we'll look forward to that. But it
Yeah.
sounds like for now we're just, the city's got their contractor developing a concept design for what they're calling phase 1.
That's progress. That's good. That's action. Great.
Look at you, Trudy, all optimistic.
Yeah, we're going. Well, and we pushed for that in an advocacy role for a lot of years. So that's a good example of sticking with it and making the case. I guess we had an impact and getting there. Yeah.
Great. So I think the main I'm at the end of our agenda. I think the main takeaway here is we will all take some time between now and the end of the public comment period to review these sections, which I'll send out via email and provide some comment. And I think I would encourage us to, discuss before we just submit comments. You can submit comments individually. And I think we also should submit a set of consolidated, concise comments on behalf of the Conservancy Board.
Jack, did you want to, as you send it out, you want to suggest which sections relate to our work? So you're encouraging us what to focus on? I mean, we may, our own other interests, we may go off in other sections, but this 400-page document, should we kind of say, here's what we think is within our territory that we want to look at? Or...
Yeah, what I'm going to send out is basically what Eric had identified. Eric, during his discussion, he said, I think this is a good place for the Conservancy Board to focus. I think this is another place. He kind of jumped around a few spots in the document, and I'll identify which those were. It was, I didn't take total notes, but I'll go back through it and I'll send that out this evening. So everybody has that. Yeah, that way we're not going through 400 pages. Although I'm sure there's some, I'm sure every page has good information and just not necessarily applicable to our business.
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry, Karen, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to suggest that maybe we could come up with, try to come up with initial comments. Like maybe everybody could kind of give feedback if you have comments, like in the next month or so via email. And if we could try to come up with our list of comments, then maybe we could vote on it. Like have a final list of comments that then we vote on at our next meeting and submit immediately. Because I think probably it would require, I don't know, ideally it would take, we would vote on what the final version is that we're submitting, I think.
Yeah, I think that's really smart to set it. Thank you for project managing.
But we will need to be prepared to approve it at that next meeting because it's going to be right on the deadline.
Yeah. And I'll have to figure out, Racine said that we can get, I don't actually have the schedule of our meetings. So I'm going to reach out to Hillary at the city. And I think Racine said that she should be able to provide our actual meeting schedule. So I'm looking at the calendar, 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks from now would be August the 10th. I don't know if we need to set a hard deadline or just say, what do you think, Karen, with your project management experience?
I don't know. I think we could I think we could just call it a casual, like
Okay.
try to get your comments by August 10th.
August 10th. So that would be
Yeah.
a month. That's like a month from 4 weeks from today.
And
So-
by the way, we meet the second Thursday of every month.
Okay, it's the second Thursday. Yeah. And even though, like, I guess I could put that in my calendar, but I would just love to have a sheet that just says all of the dates. Second Thursday.
I have a question, Jack, amongst my notes, I have here an action item that you're gonna reach out to Eric Lashinsky for an interactive greenway map. Should I keep that as an action item, in the minutes?
I think so, because I would like to have more than just, looking at the plan, I just have, it's actually split across 2 pages, not even like one whole figure. So yeah, I would like to reach out to Eric and get a little more meat on the bones of that figure. And I think ultimately, Racine, I have one question for you as well, is
Yeah,
we had talked about, the GIS capabilities and using
Right.
GIS, because that's actually really
Right.
important, I think, to a lot of the work that we want to do. And I'm
yeah.
curious how we could access
Okay.
GIS resources.
So my suggestion is that when you're reaching out to Eric about
Yeah.
an interactive map, that you copy Sean Wampler.
Okay,
Last name is spelled W-A-M-P as in Paul, L-E-R. Sean, S-H-A-W-N. She's an IT person, and she specifically does GIS stuff for the city, and I think has been very instrumental in developing the Greenway map.
okay. Yeah, because it would be great if we could, not only have the visual map, but look at who owns the parcels that are identified for potential
Right, she
easements.
has that information.
Yeah, how many acres they are.
Right,
We could overlay wetlands, we could
Right.
overlay streams. So, and currently we don't have any way to access, and besides what the city has published on their GIS page, we don't
Right.
have any way to, be able to use that. So I'll pick that up with Eric and copy Sean. Thank you. Okay. So I'm looking forward to having some discussion about the 2040 plan. Thank you everybody for your time. I now will open the floor for any new business or any kind of discussion or comments outside of what was on our agenda, but that's all that I had this evening.
Let's track, is our commission fully filled up with for our board?
No, we're
I
six.
believe that the commission or the board itself has 7 members. So with Joanna stepping down, you are 1 member short.
Okay. Is somebody working on finding a member? Do we know?
I think that we all should be thinking about it. I haven't really spent any, focused time on thinking about who we could add onto the board, but I think that would be something good to discuss. Yeah, obviously the many hands make light work. So I think that keeping that maybe on our minds as we go from now to our next meeting would be helpful. Does anybody have any ideas?
Your focused and energized approach, but I think we need a little more manpower too.
Yeah, I think having a full board we're going to be able to be more effective. Thank you, Trudy. That's actually really helpful.
I had asked some aldermen, but I don't know that I ever got a response from that, but that's always an option too. Like if we have, especially if there are certain wards that aren't represented on the board, we could ask the alderman or alderwoman for that ward if they know of anybody.
Jack and Linda, who are sort of some of our newer and really better trained by your professional knowledge than somebody like me, for example. How did you did you ask to discover the board and ask to be on it, or what process brought you to us? And Patrick,
Yeah, can't speak for Patrick. I was approached about my interest in joining and thought that it would be a good way to give back to the city. So that's how I got here.
approached by Joanna or somebody who knows what our work is like that, or kind of?
I think it was, I can't even remember now. I think it was Karen mentioned that she was on the Conservancy board and they,
That's
had a vacancy or something like that. And she said, oh, you should reach out to Joanna if you're interested. And I think
That's what I
that's how
would
it
have
happened. I
guessed.
don't even remember.
Yeah, one of us who, how about Linda, how did we find you?
I think it was Joanna. I think I was talking to her about work-related conservation stuff, and we stumbled upon that.
See, that's why I think those of you for whom this is more closely your profession are one of our jewels for who's out there that that we could send. I don't think we're hotly competed for to serve on the board. I think if we found somebody with expertise and interest, we should push them forward. When we don't do that, it doesn't seem to me we've had much movement over the years. That the names, that's what I would have guessed, that the names were coming from Karen and Joanna and people with understanding. Anyway, so that's another
Well,
test.
Well, I recruited Joel Dunn years ago, and I recruited Joanna, and I recruited Jack. So I'm doing
There you
my
go.
part.
You go, girl. You go, girl.
Also, if you do come up with someone you might want to put forward to be on the board, that would go through Hillary Raftovich.
Okay. Thanks, Tracy.
Just one last one. I'm sorry, I'm being too yucky. Everybody wants to go eat dinner, so do I. But when we brought people on the board over the years, and there are people who've gone out long enough who weren't like really in this field, they never seemed to latch on and hardly came to a meeting and sort of floated away. There was a couple of them or three of them. And so we've done best when we really find somebody whose field and passion is conservation and preservation of land and those kinds of things. It seems to me, I don't know what other people observation are. But.
Yeah, no, I think we want to find someone who can either complement the skill set that's currently represented on the board, someone that has a new skill set, but definitely something related to our duties that can help, carry out our duties. I think, I don't know if we need to make a motion, but I would encourage everybody to have this on their mind and maybe bring some ideas to the next meeting of members, or just send out an email and say, hey, I've got, professional contact or a friend, or yeah, I think that's a good, thank you for bringing that up, Trudy. Any other new business or items for discussion here? All righty, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. I really look forward to getting through this comprehensive plan. I think this is going to be a great spot for us to really contribute and kind of make our voice heard and have a, leave our mark on the comprehensive plan. And we'll pick this up. I guess our next meeting is, Tom.
No, I was just going to say, if you're looking for a move to adjourn, to kind of tie a pretty bow around it. I mean,
Let's tie that bow, Tom. I will move to adjourn this meeting at 7:10.
A second.
Linda has seconded. All in favor of moving to adjourning?
Aye.
we're good.
Aye. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Racine. Thank you, Madeline.
Thank you, Jack. Your good new energy.
Talk to
Thank
you all
you.
soon. I appreciate it.